Welcome to the David Avocado Wolf podcast. This show brings you David's revolutionary ideas on radiant health and personal growth. With over 30 years of experience and hosting more than 3,000 live health events, David has inspired millions worldwide to live their best lives ever. Are you ready? Let's get started. Today is the best day ever.
Greetings, David Avocado Wolf here. Welcome to the broadcast. I've got an awesome guest coming on, Dr. Noah Lebowitz. I found out about him through his amazing products, Supreme Nutrition products, and I was like, wow, these products are not only great in the way they're put together, but they're like products you can't get hardly anywhere else. And I was like, wow, this guy's really got something going on. So I thought, let's track him down and let's get him on the broadcast. Now, what's even better about Dr. Noah, before I get him in here, is that he's got an office in Maui. So if you're in Hawaii, this guy might become your doctor if you're tuning in from that part of the world. All right, let's bring him in. No further ado. Dr. Noah Lebowitz, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. It's an honor to talk with you. I've known about you for, a long time. So this is really cool to actually make a face connection.
Awesome. Fantastic. Well, I found out about you through your Supreme Nutrition products. So I think I'm going to go there first and then talk about your practice and what you're doing there in Maui for our community. One of the things that I found in your collection is Mimosa pudica. And we know that's a great dewormer. That's been one of the most difficult dewormers to find, actually, right up until now. When did you guys develop that product, and how long have you been on to the nature and the actual powers of Mimosa pudica seed?
We've probably started using it 7 years ago or so, and it was actually at the request of a fellow physician, a friend of ours, Dr. Charlie Fagenholz in California. He had said, hey, this stuff is awesome for parasites. Do you have a way that you can find it? And it took a lot of searching. I mean, it's funny. It actually grows in my backyard in Hawaii.
That's right. We know that.
My daughter stepped on one of the plants. She started crying. They call it pokies. Because of the thorns. But, the seeds are pretty amazing. And yeah, about the past 7 years, we've been using it as a anti-parasitic.
Fantastic. Now, that's what I've been on. I've been on your product and along with a bunch of other anti-parasite products. And I just absolutely love your product. And there's a great book out there. I don't know if you know about Laura Rohr, the Ropeworm Protocol Bible, and how she healed herself of all her problematic conditions, including very extreme Lyme's disease, just by staying on the parasite killing protocols, and the main one being Mimosa pudica seed. So that's the thing that really got me. I was like, wow, this is epic. I'm going to start into this. That became part of our protocol. Just real quickly before we let that one go, because that's such a great product, and I recommend that product. Anybody who's listening right now to add into your anti-parasite protocol. What's your experience with people like in the field? People come in your office, get them on Mimosa pudica. How's that react with them?
I mean, it's one of those plants that I look at as gentle but strong. People generally do very well with it when it's indicated. Mimosa is one of those very interesting herbs because it has antifungal properties, it has anti-Borrelia properties, it has anti-parasitic properties. So, and those are like done in a petri dish. So it has a lot of that. Clinically, it works. But it also, the cool thing about it is it's very gelatinous. So like one thing I like to do sometimes with people is if you actually take a capsule, mix it in water, it literally turns into a ball of goo like the size of your fist. And so it literally like scrubs your intestines as it goes through. So it's really cool because it's not just like the biochemical properties of it. Physically, it seems to scrub things out. So it actually has like a dual action, which I always thought was a really cool thing, unlike a lot of other herbs.
Great point. I'm so glad you brought that up. I actually got so far into it from your product that I started actually collecting some in Hawaii. And you know how they grow. And sometimes you can get a lot of clusters. And I started blending them in, and I saw that demulcent quality. And I was like, oh, what? And that's how I actually really realized it. And then I started doing the experiments like you described. And I went, whoa, this is really something amazing. It's like a replacement for chia seed or a replacement for psyllium husk because it has that bulking quality. So quality. Look at that, everybody. Wow, look at that.
And that's just from one capsule. I just love how the goopiness of it is pretty cool.
It's like sea moss. It's really something special. And the plant, for those of you who don't know Mimosa pudica, it's the sensitive plant. I know Dr. Noah knows it because his kids are running around it and he knows exactly how thorny it is, but it's the plant that reacts to you. Like you touch it and it will react. Super interesting. It's almost like it has has animal qualities to it, right?
100%. I mean, it's not a carnivorous plant, but yeah, as soon as you touch it, it basically just folds up and shows its thorns like it's ready to fight.
It's amazing. You know, it's even crazier, Dr. Noah, because I've had a farm in Hawaii for about 20 years, and we have always just been on getting that one out. Like, okay, let's get it out. Okay, let's get it out. Let's get it out. And so we're always out there trying to get it out. And I did actually essentially weed it all out. And then I realized, wait a second. That's kind of how it goes in Hawaii.
I mean, we have so many medicinal plants growing on our property, and with the mimosa, it's always a torn of, I don't want to step on it since I always walk barefoot, but at the same time, I like the medicinal properties, and it's even better if you can go and pick some seeds or pick the leaves and do it that way also.
Greetings, David Avocado Wolf here to talk to you about Supreme Nutrition and the awesome line of herbs that they have. Difficult to find herbs that are essential in our toxic world today, and herbs that can improve your bone density and strengthen your immune system. First on the list is Mucuna, and that improves speed of thought, speed of wit, but most importantly for me is speed of reflexes. I'm a drummer, I gotta be sharp. Cat's Claw, Uña de Gato, another one, tough to find, great for coughs, colds, flus, fevers, clean product from Supreme Nutrition. I was so happy to finally find a good Cat's Claw product from them. Olive leaf extract, protect your glands, your reproductive organs. One of my favorite supplements of all, rich in oleuropein. One of the things that you got to really consider, not only for your immune system, but to protect your reproductive organs as you age. Here's another one, Sysus Quadrangularis, for bones, tendons, ligaments, joints. Tough to find that. I'm a vegetarian and I don't eat things that normally would be good for that, like cartilage. So I've got to find that in the plant world. And Supreme Nutrition has it in Sysus Quadrangularis. Then there's Mimosa pudica seed. That's designed to get those unwanted guests out, the parasites out, but also good for intractable conditions like Lyme's disease, a great adjunct to a healthy diet overall. Another one that I found, I'll just throw this in here too, is Andrographus Paniculada. That's another great one for Lyme's. Tough to find anywhere out there. You'll enjoy Supreme Nutrition's line of powerful and difficult to find herbs. Try them. You'll love them. Fantastic, clean products made by doctors that I know and trust. This is so fun for me, Dr. Noah, because I really just want to kind of focus on like different products that I think are super interesting, which you have all of them, which is so cool. The next one I want to get into is Andrographus Paniculada. Andrographus is one of the most bitter substances you may ever consume. I mean, it's beyond. When I grew it in Hawaii, actually, I just would eat the flowers because every other part was just, it was overwhelming. But wow, you talk about a Borrelia killer, you talk about an anti-parasitic, you talk about a mold killer. This thing's unbelievable. What do you think about Andrographus, Dr. Noah?
I mean, it has a lot of different properties. You know, like a lot of herbs you think of like more for adrenals or more for parasites. But, you know, a lot of people use it for viral protection. It's great for viruses. It's good for things like EBV. Like you mentioned, you know, it's a good antibacterial. People use it for Lyme disease. It helps lower histamine levels. It's good liver support. It's also good adrenal support. I will say with the most recent COVID strain, my dad's been using Andrographus the most in his patients also, and he's had really good results with that. So, you know, it's definitely one of the more varied plants in terms of what it can do.
Amazing. You know, it's a really easy plant to grow, and we grow it in the tropics, so we're growing it in Hawaii. So it comes from the Vedic system. I'm pretty sure about that. And that's where I first originally, I think, found it. And I've for people with really chronic, like, let's say people with chronic Lyme's, they have chronic viral conditions, especially the Epstein-Barr and that whole family, herpes family. 2 weeks on olive leaf extract, 2 weeks on echinacea, 2 weeks on Andrographus, because Andrographus is not something like you can take every day forever. It's like you take it for a period of time, get off of it. What are your thoughts about that?
I mean, I always look at with a lot of herbs, you know, it's like herbs that are really strong. You know, ideally you shouldn't be on them long term. You know, there's more some like tonic type herbs that I think you can use as nourishing long term, but a lot of the strong stuff, I think it has a time and a place for. And I do believe in that.
That's smart. I think that's good medicine. Right on. And then okay, let's get on to the next one, because you guys, I think you call it in your pharmacopoeia of all your great products, you call it Melia or Neem. It's Neem.
Yes.
Neem is the most well-known, name of it in the Western Hemisphere. Let's talk about Neem, and you've got a great Neem product. Let's get into the product first. Is it just Neem leaf, or is there Neem seed in there, or what's it consist of?
We just use neem leaf. With a lot of different herbs, they have so many different properties. Same with mimosa. I mean, the seeds have different properties than the leaves. With Melia or neem, people use the leaf, people use the bark, people use the seed. For our purpose, though, we just do 100% organic leaf in the product. And I mean, I think it's probably one of the strongest anti-parasitics out there, but it's also an amazing antifungal, anti-candida herb. It's one of those, it's extremely broad spectrum. I mean, when you talked about Andrographus and bitter, Melia has to be the worst tasting herb I've ever had. My parents up country on Maui, they have a tree growing, and I'll eat a couple leaves when I'm out there, but that stuff is potent.
It's potent. We actually, right here behind me, this is interesting. Just it so happens, this is neem leaf from Hawaii. I'm not in Hawaii right now. I'm on another farm. And so this is just neem leaf I shipped up here because it'll go into the sprays. Like if I'm going to make a compost tea and spray the trees and nourish them through the leaves, I'm going to do that because it's so good against insects, right? And that probably tells us something. Its anti-parasite properties are phenomenal.
Definitely, yeah. Neem oil, which I don't recommend neem oil to be ingested. That can be toxic. But neem oil will go out and spray on our avocado trees and things like that as a natural anti-pesticide. It's amazing.
Amazing. Yeah, I've done that too with soap. I think we put the neem oil and soap together, something like that, and something like this. That's the story. Very interesting, and really, I think historically one of the most important herbs to ever come out of India. It's it's really a tree leaf. Really cool and great. So the other thing I want to ask you about that product is there's this history that we hear about in the Vedic system of a man taking neem leaf so that you don't get pregnant, right? It's like a contraceptive of some sort. Is there any truth to that?
It's a really good question. I get this question a lot. I mean, certain herbs like Melia, which is neem leaf, or another one of my favorite anti-parasitics is Videnga. That's another great, especially for more helminth, larger worm infections. And traditionally in Ayurvedic medicine, they used men and women for contraception. I don't recommend any of those during pregnancy, but I will say I've had a ton of women or men take them, feel better, and then the next month get pregnant. So I definitely wouldn't trust it as a contraceptive, or at least if so, it seems really fast reversible as soon as you stop it.
Fascinating. Interesting. I just went and looked at Videnga on your site. That's another really cool and interesting herb.
It's a lesser known, neem is a more commonly known Ayurvedic herb. Videnga, we might be the only people that have it as a standalone product in the US. We found it's a great anti-parasitic for larger parasites. Clinically, I see it work well for fungal issues. Also, it's really interesting. I read some Ayurvedic or Indian medical journals, and it talked about how it helps support people with methylation issues. And so I have some SNPs, and my homocysteine levels run a 15, which is higher than they should for my age. But if I take methylated B vitamins, I get headaches. So after reading the study, I tried taking Videnga twice a day for a month. And I did pre and post homocysteine levels, and it actually lowered my homocysteine by 25%, just like it actually showed in the studies. And so that was pretty cool how it basically works like folic acid to help support methylation, but from a natural herbal standpoint.
Vidanga, Vidanga, very interesting. Now, the elevated homocysteine levels for somebody who's just a layperson listening, that's a real big marker of an incoming heart attack. Any other problems too? Maybe stroke, or what is elevated homocysteine really connected to?
I mean, I look at it as heart inflammation, 100%. It's one of those crazy things. You go to your medical doctor and you have a homocysteine of 40, and then it's like, oh, you're fine. They don't really put a whole lot of faith into it, but I definitely do look at it as heart inflammation, but also just as a sign your body's not working as well as it should. It's one of those markers I love to see on everyone. And if it's off, it's not like I need to supplement it, but it means something's wrong. We need to work on you as a person to get you healthier.
telling you, everybody out there, Dr. Noah, you might want to track this guy down as your doctor. That was really well described, well characterized. Okay, let's get on to woad. I was like, my God, these guys have woad. You got to be kidding me. I'm like the only person I know that grows woad, actually. Now, I'll just tell you what happened for me with woad. I was on some magical herb site from like upstate New York or something, and they had all kinds of interesting things. And they're like, yeah, woad was like a, big druid herb and a big herb back in the old country, in the old world. And it was used for a dye, right? But they didn't really have any more information than that. I was like, I bet you it has this magical history, but there's no information about it. And then they use it as a dye. So I'm like, okay, there's a big gap there. So I thought, well, I'll just grow it, see how it does. And I've been very surprised. Now, one of the things, I'm up here in Ontario, Canada, so I'm in the far north, I'm in northern Ontario. So it's a zone 3-4 here. It can get Arctic conditions. It snowed last night, for example. And up here, it can survive. Woad can survive outdoors without me having to bring seeds in, and it reseeds itself, which is telling me something about its hardiness. It's one of the hardiest things I've actually ever grown here, and it reseeds itself. And I'll tell you something else, Dr. No, that blew my mind about it. Every 2 weeks in its growing cycle, it completely changes its appearance.
Really?
That's the most amazing thing. I was like, oh, got it now. Something is magical going on. It looks like it's in the cruciferous family, right? It's like a, broccoli family. But when you look at it, you're like, wait, it looks like that. Wait, then it looks like that. So sometimes it'll look like wild mustard. Then it'll look like broccoli. Then it will look like some other thing in the cruciferous family. Then it goes to another one. You're just like, when it sprouts up, it looks like sprouted cabbage. I mean, it's just amazing. So I'd love to hear what you're using it for in your practice and what its medicinal properties are.
Yeah, I mean, the main things that I look at it, again, it's an herb. It does a million different things. It's great anti-inflammatory. I mostly think of it for viral infections. A lot of people use it for flu. I personally like star anise or Lycium verum more for flu, but woad is a great flu/viral support. Also fungal issues. My dad, he talked thorn research into coming out with Isatis like 30 years ago, and they eventually discontinued it, which is why we came out with woad. And he's been using it for fungal issues for probably the past 30 years. I'm currently on it for a fungal issue. Living in Haiku, Maui, it's a little hard to get away from the mold. But so again, it's a good antifungal and antiviral in my opinion.
Okay, cool. Wow. Very interesting. Now, do you know are you using the leaf? Do you know which part of the plant? Is it the root?
We're specifically using the root for the medicinal properties.
And I believe that's the part that was used for dyeing as well.
Yeah, when I used to live in Washington State, one of my patients, she was like an awesome homesteader, and she actually like hand-stitched shirts for my kids and dyed them with fresh Isatis, fresh woad that she grew, which was really cool.
Cool. Very interesting. Okay. Now, the next herb I want to get into is one of my favorites of all time. I've grown it in Hawaii, actually, for many, many years. And it's really interesting because the word actually Mucunan, it comes from the Amazon. It's a Shipibo word. But this seed, or the bean, is probably most well known in the Ayurvedic system, which is Mucuna pruriens. Let's get into that, because you talk about some widespread, interesting chemistries going that affects many different things. There's one for you. So let's jump into Mucuna.
Like you mentioned, I mean, definitely probably best known in the Ayurvedic system. It's really high in L-DOPA, which, I mean, I think if you look at most people that are depressed, they're not low in serotonin. They're actually low in dopamine, in my opinion. And supplementing with Mucuna with L-DOPA, then that converts into dopamine, so that's a mood elevator. And then that can also turn it into adrenaline as needed, so it helps support increased energy. So I look at it for mood, I look at it for energy. I mean, a lot of people use it for increased sexual function, for libido, helping reverse male infertility, erectile dysfunction. So again, it's one of those very widespread herbs with a lot of properties. Those are kind of some of the main ones that I personally think of, though.
Yeah, that's a really good characterization. And this disturbance, I don't know your theories on this, Dr. No. Maybe we should get into a little bit about what's causing all the Parkinson's. And my personal feeling is, and I got into this because of Mucuna, was looking at the shikimate pathway, of which L-DOPA is a piece of that pathway. And it kind of jumps in front of the pathway in case your body can't run through the pathway. from the amino acids through the charismatic acid, all the way step up into eventually developing the neuromelanin that's in the substantia nigra, which is the core brain, right? So a disturbance in that pathway, which in a plant is called the shikimate pathway. In a human being, it's not called that, but it's basically the same idea. And Mucuna seems to just give so much L-DOPA that it kind of allows that pathway to work properly or bypass what might be problems in the pathway. And then I started digging into glyphosate. And glyphosate just absolutely disturbs that pathway. And so that's my theory, is that the real cause of the epidemic of Parkinson's that we're dealing with is glyphosate poisoning. What do you think?
I mean, definitely the two things that I think when I think Parkinson's, I think chemical/pesticide, which glyphosate definitely at the top of that, and also heavy metals. Both of those things I think completely will block or alter that pathway you're talking about. I mean, glyphosate's one of those, the more you look into it, the more it just scares you, and you really shouldn't. It's worrisome, but definitely, detoxing chemicals, detoxing metals, detoxing herbicides like glyphosate can be huge in helping to reverse Parkinson's symptoms in people.
Excellent. Thanks for that. That was beautiful. And so we're huge fans of Mucuna. And by the way, the history, I've got really into Mucuna over the years, because I'm a cacao grower. We grow chocolate trees. Do you grow any chocolate trees up there at your place?
We have 2. We get like 3 pods a year. It's not very good.
Okay. Well, one day I'll have to visit. We'll give it a little fertilization, see what we could do, or maybe bring you one of our strains. At any rate, one of the things that has been happening in many jungle environments in Central and South America has been the growing of Mucuna with cacao. And this is actually one of the most ancient combinations of all time. And that's an amazing combo. So if you are doing Mucuna and you're like, oh, how could I mix this into some food? Actually goes great with chocolate. That's its historical partner. It's even more historical than chocolate and vanilla. Is that wild or what?
And, that makes total sense thinking of, how a lot of like Native Americans use beans along the crops to nitrogen fix and everything. So from a growing standpoint, that's fascinating, but it makes complete sense.
They do so well together. Just Mucuna and cacao growing together is amazing. Mucuna, vanilla, and cacao all growing together is an amazing combination, grown that way for many years. Okay, I want to jump into, because I think what I see in your offering is dealing with people with high viral load, dealing with people with high fungal load, dealing with people with high Borrelia and Lyme. So Japanese knotweed, you have a good Japanese knotweed product. Thank God. That's hard to find with no fillers, no binders, none of the junk that goes in. Let's get into Japanese knotweed a little bit. It's in that Polygonum family, which, is notable for he shu wu, the famous Chinese herb. It's notable for buckwheat. It's notable for the, what's the yellow dock? Yellow dock's in that family. But let's get into Japanese knotweed and your thoughts on it.
I love it for, again, a lot of different things. Like you mentioned, the Lyme disease, it's a very popular one for that. It has a lot of great properties with Borrelia and Babesia. Great for viral issues, especially chronic viral issues. When you think chronic Epstein-Barr, cytomegalovirus, things like that, it can come in very popular. And another cool thing with Japanese knotweed is if you look at the research, it has really great anti-biofilm properties. So that's the way that like Borrelia and different Epstein-Barr and different infections can hide away in biofilms. And so the knotweed can really help to get rid of the infections themselves, but also break down where they're hiding in the body.
Epic. Really good description. There's in the original or in the later versions of Dr. Buhner, remember Stephen Herod Buhner, the great herbalist?
Yep.
He actually has a chart in there that's one of the most amazing charts. I've always thought, Dr. No, that we need to get this chart big and published on websites everywhere because it has the herb and then all the things that it's known to do based on the scientific research.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, and it's only in the later versions of that book, and the book is called Healing Limes by Dr. Buhner, Buhner, if you want to track that down. And I saw that chart because I had an earlier version. One day I was looking at another version. I was like, wait a second, what's this? What's in here? And I just thought, geez, it would be so helpful for any practitioners or anybody just looking for self-healing to just have that chart because what we're taught, as you know, you have to take a pharmaceutical. This doesn't work. You do this instead. It's like that typical, dismissive, herbs don't work. When in reality, herbs are the only thing that's going to work long term.
Definitely.
It's right. It's like, because there's no side effects for real. I mean, they're natural side effects. And if you do too much, the difference between a poison and a medicine is dosage. Do too much, your body says, hey, stop, let's do something else. And, it's not the pharmaceuticals where it's like really gnarly side effects, and there's no end date typically. But anyway, I wanted to get into Sysus Quadrangularis, because this is another one that's just impossible to find, but you've got it, and a good one. And I was like, wow. Okay. So I want to get into your thoughts on that one.
Sysus is a really interesting herb because, it really helps promote healing. I mean, people use it for healing the stomach. I've seen people use it for fungal issues. Using it has antibacterial properties. Again, as an herb, it has so many different properties. But it's really cool because it helps to heal joints. It helps with ligaments. It helps with cartilage. So a lot of people that might have, you could say, structural issues from something like Bartonella, or just, history of dirt biking or whatever things people do, it really helps the body start to regenerate and heal in a little bit of the way, like the big thing nowadays, like prolotherapy, injections, stem cell injections, things like that. And this is a little bit more like an herbal version to help the body start to heal from a natural standpoint.
Oh man. Okay. So I've got to ask you some questions then, because I injured my meniscus on my knee, and, I'm still walking around, but I just can't hit on a certain angle. That's kind of where it is. It's just a certain angle of attack. And then I'll get a weird, like almost an electrical shock thing, and get me off of it quick. And it's getting, it's improving a lot. And I'll probably be over it in about 6 weeks, maybe 2 months, something like that. Because those, how those things are slow. What else would you recommend then? Because I'd like to know some other things I could be taking other than your Sysus. I'm doing obviously a whole protocol of things, but you may have something I don't know on your website here.
From a healing standpoint, from an herbal, probably Sysus would be my top recommendation. The only other thing that sometimes, since if things are pinched, whenever you move, you're going to have a lot of inflammation. And one thing I really like for that, I'm not sure if you're aware or if you use much of mangista or Indian madder root.
No.
It's used in traditional Chinese medicine as well as Ayurvedic medicine. So it made, both aspects of that. And in my opinion, it is the best lymphatic cleanser. So like I'll use it for people with lymphedema where their legs are swollen up really big, or just people with like chronic infections and their lymph is just really congested. A cool thing is like the first few days you take it, your pee will usually change colors because you're actually getting stuff out. But then they've also found with mangista, it's an anti-inflammatory as strong as turmeric, but it's water soluble. So you don't have to worry about taking it with the black pepper, taking it with the fat. It just gets absorbed a lot better. So that's one thing I love, mangista.
Fantastic. We're learning so much here. This is just great. I see you also have the star anise. That's your Elysium Supreme. Just so everybody knows that. I dug deep into that during the pandemic days, and that was fascinating. I got into growing it, actually. I got so into it, and I was like, whoa, and the whole shikimate pathway we were just talking about was discovered in this plant. Give us a little bit about that. I don't think that herb gets enough press.
I think it's like 85% of the world's Elysium or star anise crops go to making Tamiflu. But if you look at Tamiflu, basically all the description says is it decreases your symptoms by up to 1 day and then has like 9 pages of potential side effects. I mean, who wants that? With Elysium, I love doing a high dose for me, which in pill form, that's about 9 pills a day. So that's like 1.5 grams 3 times a day. And people with influenza, it works amazing. I've seen it stop it in its tracks. Whenever they're like, oh, I get the flu and it lasts a week, I took your Elysium, it was gone in a day. Or people that have been sick for like 2 weeks and haven't gotten over it. And they're like, as soon as I started it, it just basically stopped it in its tracks. And a cool thing about star anise is traditionally it's a safe one to use during pregnancy. So for all the pregnant and breastfeeding mamas out there, it's a good one because it works great. They can take it also in addition to kids. It tastes good in my opinion, or, for any adult, it's kind of a very versatile herb there.
Awesome. I completely am totally in your camp. I think it's one of the greatest things. It was like, there was so much talk about ivermectin. This is another huge, for me, it was a discovery from the pandemic that was like, my God, this stuff's incredibly powerful. And again, it's very high in shikimate. that's named after the shikimate pathway. Okay, I want to jump into your Artemisia. That was another one. I think you've got the one that the African Artemisia. Is that correct? Is that what's in there?
We use Artemisia annua, which is more.
That's it, yeah.
Okay, so I didn't know if that was called African. I more think of it more of a. I think of it as an Chinese medicine herb, but again, I mean they grow it in Europe. I have it growing in my house. Sweet wormwood.
It's a really good one. That's another one that came out of the whole pandemic that was like, it's like star anise or Elysium. It's like ivermectin. I mean, it was just something just incredible. It was like Artemisia annua. Who knew about that? And then I got into the whole thing. It's used for malaria. I mean, that's a big part of what it's used for too, especially in Africa. And then all other kinds of things. It's one of the most dominantly grown herbs in Africa. I was like, it's like a whole world industry there. Let's get into it. So tell us a little bit more about it.
I mean, yeah, it's funny, like you mentioned about Artemisia, because I mean, certain countries actually banned it during COVID, which makes no sense whatsoever because they didn't want it as a natural remedy. Just blows my mind. So definitely has a lot of great things there. I mean, I've thought of it as an anti-parasitic. It's a gentle but very potent anti-parasitic. I've used it for that for a long time. Also has some more, again, gentle antifungal properties. It also is a good one for Lyme disease. So it has a lot of different properties, which I think is pretty cool. Like you mentioned, a lot of people use it for lupus. They use it for so many different things. I can think of a couple actually really tough parasite cases where some patients actually brewed an Artemisia tea and then did enemas with it. And that was like the game changer for them. It's like the herb was working orally, but it just wasn't fully doing it. Again, I've had like 2 patients in 10 years do this, but that was like a big game changer for them.
Interesting. Fascinating about that. This is really what I love about what you're offering is these are very powerful herbs, don't get enough press. If you find them, they've got fillers and binders and other crap in it. It's just horrible. And you can't really trust it. Well, what you guys have is like, it's just incredible. And another one that comes up it's one I use commonly in tea, and it's one that's very prevalent on Kauai, actually. It's kind of gotten loose and wild there, which is cat's claw or uña de gato. And you've got it, and you've got a trustable, good product, which is, again, another one you find all kinds of things in this category of cat's claw that aren't actually the real cat's claw. But let's get into cat's claw, because to me, this is one of the great tonic herbs to ever come out of the jungle. It's one of the great substances. Like, to me, like the Paudiarco cat's claw combination is that antiviral, antifungal combo is just incredible. And it's always a go-to. It's kind of like garlic level in terms of its antiviral, but it also has antifungal properties. Give us some stories about cat's claw and what are your thoughts on it?
I mean, like you said, it's a very broad spectrum. I think Lyme, Babesia, Bartonella, and viruses, you think EBV, you think herpes, all of that, but it's also a great antibacterial. It's a great antifungal, especially with Candida. So, some people traditionally, they used it for UTIs. They used it for tooth infections, almost make like a poultice and kind of suck on it in there. It's supportive for the liver, people with IBS, Crohn's. It helps lower inflammation. TNF alpha lowering, it's one of those, again, it's so broad spectrum. And it reminds me a little bit of mimosa, not that like the plant moves in response to touch, but just those sharp claws. I mean, it's kind of like a get away from me type thing. But it is super, super powerful.
Dr. No, that story about, like, for example, Japanese knotweed, that it's invasive in the places where it's needed. You know what I mean? Like that. Yeah. This whole idea that, because we're all sold some completely chaotic idea. It's like, oh, it's all random, and like nature's all random. And actually there's an intelligence going on that's way beyond actually most people's consciousness. And what's interesting to me about cat's claw is it's like I was in Jamaica, okay, and I was talking to the Rastafarians up there in the mountains and hanging out there. I stayed up there with them, and so every day we're talking about what's going in their teapot. What are you actually putting in there? I wanted to know what is actually going in there. And they're like, the first thing that goes in the bottom of that teapot every day is cat's claw. And I'm like, where is it? And they go like that. And right there, so that how the jungle is. You live in the jungle, so you have like trees and stuff and bushes that are encroaching in. And the cat's claw climbs up those trees and then goes over the top of them and was literally connecting over the road up in this mountain in Jamaica. And I was just like, oh, it's right there. Look at that. I mean, that's how invasive it is. It's so intense, and that kind of tells you the power.
Completely. I mean, talking story on the side, I mean, I definitely do think, just like back in the day, you only were exposed to infections that lived near you, different fungi, different bacteria. Now, on any given day, we're coming in contact with people from every continent of the world. We're eating food from who knows where, and we get exposed to so much stuff. And that's why I think, pulling herbs from South America, from Europe, from Asia, from China, from India, from, Canada, from everywhere, you kind of need that to deal with what you're growing with. My dad always thought, so if you look in the South, what grows up all telephone poles? It's kudzu. And he's like, I wonder if kudzu is going to help people with EMF sensitivities because it grows up all the telephone poles. And it actually didn't end up. Kudzu is a great herb, but it didn't end up helping with EMFs. But then in a lot of testing, we actually found Chancropiedra, which I'm sure that's a great one for stones. We actually found that helps a lot of people with EMF sensitivities.
Wow, of all things, that's interesting. Chancropiedra is a favorite of mine. I've grown it whenever, it grows in Hawaii wildly. There's a lot of that family there. And it's just, I'm trying to think of the name of it. It's Phalanthus, Pyranthus.
Phalanthus
nairuri. There it is,
yes.
Nairuri. Phalanthus nairuri, that's it, something like that, Phalanthus. Anyway, it's one of those, I've seen it growing all over Houston, Texas, for example, everywhere, yep. And just one of my favorites of all time, and the stonebreaker, right? So,
yes.
The ancients knew, those ancient Amazonian shamans knew about those breaking up stone formations, and people's body, they didn't have the surgical prowess that we have today, but man, they knew. I want to talk about one more herb that you got. It's a seaweed, and it's cool that you have it here. And I was like, I wonder why Dr. Noah has this, why this one? And it's one I like eating. I've always loved this particular seaweed, which is Alaria.
Alaria, we wanted a trace mineral support product. A lot of people are low in minerals. The problem with a lot of seaweeds are they're just contaminated. I mean, unfortunately, the ocean is not clean. At least a lot of the ocean isn't clean like we would hope. We wanted to find a seaweed that wasn't contaminated with mercury and cadmium and different things like that, and that had a lot of iodine and had a lot of other good properties. And we found that Alaria worked well. We were able to get a freshly harvested one off the coast of Nova Scotia, where the water seems to be pretty clear. Heavy metal tests are great. And, it's a great iodine source for a lot of people that don't get daily iodine in, along with many other trace minerals. So it's kind of like my go-to for a trace mineral source.
Okay, cool product. And you see a lot of kelp out there on the market. You'll see a lot of nori being eaten and seaweed dishes of all different kinds. But Alaria is really a top shelf kind of thing. It's really an epic seaweed. And it was cool. It was just cool to see that. And you've got many other things. And I'm just going to invite everyone. We'll give you guys the link to go and check out Dr. Noah's entire site. If you've got somebody in your family who's dealing with a really, difficult viral condition or very difficult Babesia, Lyme situation, or an unknown condition, this is the kind of level of herbalism that you should get some consultation about and really get some knowledge about. Now, Dr. Noah, you are over there in Maui, and so do you take new patients? I hope you do, because I'll probably send some people your way soon.
We are taking new patients, yes. My dad and I work together, and we have another doc in the office. We're busy, but we love working with people with chronic issues. Fungal, Lyme, viral, chronic fatigue. Those are the types of things we love helping people with. Fantastic.
And you're up there in Kula, so how do people track you down? Let's get your contact info and make sure that people know how to reach you at your office. Do you have a website for your office?
I do. It's very simple. Just drnoahlebowitz.com. That's the easiest way to follow me. And I think my dad has a website also, but if you just Google my name, I come up pretty easily. We're not hard to find.
Do you do social media at all?
I do. I have an Instagram account where I just like talking health with people.
Cool.
I'm the believer is everyone is unique. I can have 10 people come to see me with the same symptoms. Every person gets different herbs. Every person gets different dietary plans because we're all so unique. But, you start to see patterns and what works more often. So I like to just give some suggestions on social media, which is dr_Noah DC.
DC. Okay, awesome. So
Yes,
it's
sir.
Noah, just like Noah, right?
Yes.
So people remember the biblical spelling. And Lebowitz is Lebowitz, right?
Correct.
Okay, cool. Okay, we got all that information. Fantastic. Well, I think when I get to Maui next time, I'm going to come track you down. I think
Please
we'll have a
do.
good time. And just overall, I want just as kind of a perspective for people out there, because people have a hard time understanding how to put this into their lifestyle, right? With the herbalism and changes in diet and that kind of thing. Just a couple ideas, what recommendation of how do you integrate herbs into your diet? How do you integrate like a new dietary change that has to be consistent? Because, let's say somebody's eating sugar every day and they've got fungal issues. It's not going to work out, right? So what are your thoughts about that? Just dealing with real people with real issues.
Like I mentioned before, I mean, everyone is so unique. Little steps do make a difference. If you dealt with fungal and parasitic issues in people, they would get so much healthier. But if you really want to deal with fungal and parasitic issues, you also need to make dietary changes. Like you mentioned, the sugar is going to feed all of that. So you can't ever look at anything in isolation. Some people could just cut sugar out of their diet and they feel amazing. Some people could just take an herb like Malia, the neem leaf, and they feel amazing. But a lot of the times it's kind of that combination in one to really get them over the hump and making changes like that, and they can really do well.
Fantastic. All right, everybody. That's Dr. Noah Lebowitz. Great doctor over there in Maui. Track him down. We'll get the information right here in the show notes so you can track him down yourself. We'll make sure you get his shop too. They've got really great stuff and really interesting stuff and stuff that you can rely on. Just the fact that I can go and get cat's claw and just know that I can rely on it, and I know the product and I know how good it is. The fact that I can get like Artemisia annua and know it's like, hey, there's no fillers, no binders, no crap, no chemical sprays, all that stuff. It's just awesome. And many other things are there. So check that out. Thanks so much for joining us, Dr. Noah. We'll have you on again.
Thank you. It's been an honor.
All right, you guys. Signing off. Have the best day ever. Cheers.
Thanks for listening to the David Avocado Wolf podcast. Did you love today's episode? Please share with your friends and leave us a review on Apple Podcast. Want more with David Avocado Wolf? Join us on Substack at davidavocadowolf.substack.com. Sign up for the newsletter and join the Inner Circle membership on davidwolf.com. Thank you for listening and have the best day ever.